Hey, Slick Talkers, thank you so much for tuning into this podcast. And I know that if you love this show, you'll also love my morning show called Good Morning Hospitality with my co hosts Michael Golden and Brandy Canali, as we spend 30 minutes every Monday morning to dive into the industry's top latest news and trending topics. So go check it out on wherever you find your podcasts at Good Morning Hospitality. And you can live stream with us on Monday mornings on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and of course, YouTube. Now, I hope you enjoy this episode. All right, everybody, welcome back to Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast. This is a cool segue intro to the episode. Many of you who have been following the journey since the beginning, I'm talking almost 3 years ago when I first started Slick Talk, my guest that got me on the map, his name is Adam Knight. And this is our fourth episode we've ever done together, and it's a co-branded podcast episode. So Adam Knight has many titles, as well as he said on his show that I have many titles. This guy is a 20-plus year veteran in the industry. He really has been, all over the board. I think when we first recorded, he was in California, and then he moved to Seattle, near where I live. And so he and I have stayed good friends over the years and become close colleagues and done a lot of other projects together involving the podcast and hospitality space. But this guy is just a veteran in the hotel space who is really making some cool moves and just overall a great guy to talk to. So he is also now the founder of Knowing Hospitality, and it's a consulting company here based in the United States, specifically Washington. And so I'm really excited to have him back on the show for the fourth time, a co-branded episode. He recently launched it on his podcast, the Proven Principles Podcast. And so if you are a hospitality podcast enthusiast, listener, fan of podcasts in the hospitality space, check him out. I'm super excited to have him on board and to have done this episode together. So you can check him out at the Proven Principles Podcast, as well as knowinghospitality.com. I'll link everything in the show notes. And now, welcome to the episode.
Welcome to Slick Talk, the hospitality podcast where we discuss all things hospitality, hotels, and business. You can find us online at slicktalkthepodcast.com and on every podcast listening platform.
We're doing this. This is it. We're recording. This is it, man. Good to see you.
You too. It's been way too long, but I'm glad that we've kept in touch.
Yeah, I'd say welcome to the show, but I'm also on your show right now.
Yeah,
right?
So welcome to the show, each other. We just shake our hands.
Both of us. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I lost count. How many podcasts have we done together now? This is
we did three. We did three.
Early days though for Slick Talk.
Yeah. You were actually my first official industry guest.
Love it.
Ever.
And look at you now.
I know, right? You put me on the map. I'm just saying. Your episode was so good.
You're too kind.
No, it's seriously like that's the comment I get a lot. Is a lot of people that listen to early days. They're like, "Oh yeah, I'm like, what episode got you?" And they're like, "Oh, how to become a hotel manager with that Adam guy." And I was like, "Oh, that's like the best episode."
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. That was that feels like a lifetime ago. I'm in Seattle now. I was still living in San Francisco at the time. And yeah, that's a couple of years ago almost now. So
yeah, almost three.
And the question is still relevant. Why do you want to be a hotel manager? I mean, especially in these times, but I guess we'll get to that in this show.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's
at some point.
Such a good series. And so, yeah, I'm glad. And now you're in my neck of the woods and
yep.
We're closer, so definitely I think a beer or a coffee is needed.
Anytime, as soon as we're allowed to get out of our houses.
Yeah, we'll just stay like 12 feet apart.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Hey, so I want to kick off my portion of the show anyway.
For sure.
For the Proven Principles Podcast. You developed something earlier this year called the Destination Air, and you put together the Destination Air Awards. Mm-hmm. And I think, without stealing your thunder, actually, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to preamble it at all. For anybody who doesn't know what it is and how it came to be, why don't you give us the background story on it?
I will try not to go super long. It's kind of long. It's been a flourishing of like events and stuff that have happened throughout the years. Obviously, I started out in the hotel industry like you. Was a young, ambitious hotel manager, love revenue, operations, marketing, you name it, guest experience. So the podcast took off and started a luxury vacation rental management company here in the Pacific Northwest. And so what that turned into was a big shift in my podcast when it came to content regarding hotels, vacation rentals, restaurants, you name it. And so there was a lot of conversations that have been happening throughout the industry. A lot of people go hotels versus vacation rentals. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that's very much, we can learn so much from each other. And so I'm very neutral on both. I love them. I'm always a hotel guy. Like people always ask me, do you stay in vacation rentals or hotels? I'm like, depends. Depends on my budget and usually a bunch of other things, but I like hotels and I like vacation rentals. There's a good time for both. So long story short, with my company, we were coming up, with the marketing and branding and stuff like that. And like, what do we really do? We're not going to be like every luxury vacation rental company out there that says we do this and blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. So I found the commonality of what our properties have, and they are in weird spots in the Pacific Northwest that you would not consider a destination. So I said, you know what, we exceed expectations by creating destinations, and we loved that model. And so, rewind a few, maybe a year back, I did a series, a 10 episode series, Vacation Rental Mastermind series, and talked with the biggest industry heads, pioneers that, have been in this space. And there's a lot of conversations that happened. And of course, COVID, definitely made a lot of other stuff, go into play. But one conversation in particular was with Jeremiah Gall, who's the head of Breezeway. He found FlipKey, which sold to TripAdvisor. So very, very knowledgeable, smart guy. And he goes, property manager or, vacation rental manager is not a sexy term. It doesn't really describe what we do. Like hotel manager, that you manage a hotel, but it doesn't really describe what we do on a daily basis, right? So he and I were like, maybe we can come up with a word for this episode that will better describe it. And we tried and we couldn't really think of anything. But that never left my mind, like at all. Like I was like, what the hell is it? Why can't I find a word for it? And then I had another conversation with a mentor of mine, a buddy, employer. When I moved to the Oregon coast, he hired me at his hotel and I managed his restaurants and other stuff like that. We became good friends after I left the company, and I was talking with him and he goes, we are wired to create remarkable experiences that are anticipated and shared. And when I heard that, I was like, holy crap. That is something like that just like fit everything I've been thinking about, like what we do. We are people that are wired to create remarkable 100%. Experiences. Yeah. So it's like, that got me thinking, got the wheels turning. And so I sat down with my, trusted pen and paper, and I just started writing down words. I just, I wrote down experiences, moments, and other things that kind of made this term. And I was like, destination. And I really loved it, the word destination. I was like, okay. And then it kind of goes with our model. Anyways, long story short, Destination Air was created. And so a Destination Air, for all the listeners, is a person or a company that is wired to create remarkable experiences that are anticipated and shared. And so instead of just giving it a definition, I broke it down into multiple segments. So what does a Destination Air do? And so, builds direct brand loyalty, definitely puts the team and guest safety first and the experience first, and leads selflessly and does find things that are unique and different and showcases them, and then really leans into their local community. I think that's so key. And we're seeing a lot of success with in COVID-19 is the people that have built local ecosystems are thriving because they're keeping each other, safe, not safe, but they're keeping each other, united in a big forefront. And so instead of, and to wrap up the story, instead of saying, this is what we do, we are Destination Airs, you should look at our brand and blah, 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 our company. I said, you know what, this theory, this concept has to be, there's got to be people doing it. I just don't know of them. right?
Mhm.
So I put it out there. I connected with every single one of my biggest sponsors on the show and just people that I've really gotten connected that are deep in the industry, and said, this is the concept. This is what I want to do. If you know anybody that fits it, please nominate them, share it, do this. And we launched the award in, I'd say March, April, May, July. And it ended in August, and we announced the winner August 10th. And we had over 50 nominations around the world.
Wow.
Italy, South Africa, Spain, London, America, all over America, just
Yeah.
crazy places that I've never heard of too. And it was like, okay, the concept is real.
This
The
is the
people
thing.
are real. Yeah. So that's kind of like a long story short.
I love it. I mean, it's not such a, it's a title, it's a mindset.
Mm-hmm.
It's something, I think, in these times that are so hard in hospitality, and
Yeah.
whether you're talking hotels, restaurants, or vacation rentals,
Yeah.
there's a lot to be down about right now. And we need things to celebrate and to remind us, what it is about this industry that, frankly, might want to keep you in it, right?
Yeah,
As we
100%.
sort of go through the next, who knows how long all this is going to be going on. So I know, I mean, big hats off to you, man, for creating this. I think there's a huge amount of value to it.
Well, and like you said, I think when COVID hit, a lot of us got hit pretty hard. A lot of hotels, a lot of vacation rentals, tons of restaurants. Everyone's been hit. But those who are still, thriving and surviving right now, they are putting their head down and hustling and bustling. They're not getting that spotlight. And I think you and I both know this from being a podcaster, especially in hospitality, is either ourselves or our guests on the show get the spotlight all the time. And they're big companies or big people in the industry. So it's like they're always in the spotlight. Versus these guys, they're in the trenches right now and they never get it as much. And so creating something that really kind of made them see like, hey, we're watching you. We see you. We got you. Like, thank you for doing what you do and setting that standard and really helping us be encouraged. So
you've chosen the winner.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. Are you, and do you want to talk about, give a story a little bit about, who rose to the top? And it was a hard decision.
It was a very hard decision. I think after I asked a couple of guest judges to help me out and kind of give me their nominations of who they thought out of the 50 plus that were submitted. And they did, and they gave me the reasons why, and I considered it. But we delve in deep into every single company, Google reviews, Airbnb reviews, listing reviews. Like I got in, like I felt
in the
like
weeds.
Yeah. And so we picked 5 winners, and so winner number one is Tim from OVO Network, and they're based out in the French Alps, and they just created remarkable experiences for their guests. They're in the luxury segment. So obviously it's a little bit different than your, mom and pop type of property management company, but they met every standard. They built their own software that really is all about getting their guests to come back and book direct and be loyal to the brand and to
the holy grail of hotels. Yeah, exactly.
And then second place, we had Ellie Paget out in Arizona, who I'm actually going to fly out to tomorrow. I'm excited.
Nice. Yeah.
And she just is an amazing, badass woman who has been through a lot, and she's had a very extensive career in being a chef and all these other things going into hotels. And she created this amazing company that is all about being a slice of home. She wants every single property that they bring on, which they have over 150. And she wants every single one to feel like a slice of home. And so she just really fit that guest experience expectation that I think we should all be, observing. Number 3 was Bob Gardner out in Italy. They have 6 luxury Italian apartments with pools and farmland and all sorts of cool stuff. So all these people have the same things in common. They fit the standards of a Destinationaire. Brand loyalty, guest reviews, all these things, right?
Nice. Yeah.
And so Bob, and then there's Robin Cragen out in Colorado, who I just got off the phone with as well before this interview. And again, just amazing places in Springboat, Colorado, and Vail, and just amazing chalets and villas and stuff like that. And then there's Jessica out in California, who was a single mom. She just got married, actually. Single mom of 2 girls, and she had her girls involved in the whole company. They fix fridges and take guest reservations
wow.
and bookings, and just the whole that community aspect she
Mhm.
nailed. And so
That's awesome.
it was just really cool to get to know them and to talk to them and see all this stuff come into fruition.
Yeah. So inaugural year,
Yeah.
year two. Yeah. I mean, you got to start ramping up.
Yeah. Sets the bar
Yeah.
really high. It was
Love
really
it.
hard to decide. But at the end of the day, I'm super thankful for the industry that we have.
Yeah. I used to say, when we would go through in hotels, the employee of the month or quarter or team of the quarter, whatever, however a hotel does it. I always liked when we had a lot of nominations, a lot of
Yeah.
really good nominations, right? It's a good problem to have. You have all these amazing stories of these people going above and beyond and really trying to figure out, who embodies as many of these things that we're about. And sometimes those are intangible. They're hard to define.
Ethos,
to be the model.
characteristics.
Yeah. To be the model by which, you want other people to try and emulate themselves. I love
exactly.
it.
Yeah. It was awesome. And I can't speak highly and, more highly of these people that just who've taken the time. They're, I'm lost for words. They're just amazing. So
you've had an interesting journey because you started in hotels and you still have a foot in that world, but you've pivoted towards vacation rentals.
Yeah.
Purposefully.
Yeah. Purposefully. Yeah.
Why? What's that about?
Well, it's again one of those long story short situations, but even when I was in the hotel world with Marriott and then of course going to the coast and working with boutiques and stuff like that, my parents have properties, and they had a unfinished apartment above their garage that was attached to their house, and they just said, look, we want to turn it into an Airbnb. We heard from a friend of a friend of a friend that this is really good. So they didn't, but they're not hospitality people. They didn't think about, amenities and how to describe the listing and, how to give the pictures and blah, 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 all the back end stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I helped them out with it, and it's been really successful. And so that kind of got me into it. And then the podcast, it was weird because I was doing all hotel and restaurant content in the beginning. And then I woke up one day and I had Google alerts for whenever the podcast was mentioned on Google.
Yep.
And woke up to a blog on the best vacation rental podcast to listen to, and mine was on there because I did one episode about vacation rentals.
Yeah.
And apparently it was a good one. And so I reached out to the company and got to know them and, said, thank you for mentioning the podcast. And they're based out in Scotland, which then was a whole snowball effect of they introduced me to all these other people, and that created the series that I did, the 10 episode series. And then I was already starting a business with my business partners on vacation rentals. So it just kind of all fell into place naturally.
Yep. Yeah. It's an interesting progression. I mean, we talked before the podcast about vacation rentals and what's going on right now, the industry at large. But, when COVID kicked off, when was that? Back in March, my wife and I went up to Canada and just, we didn't really know what was going on. Nobody did. So we just hunkered down for 5 weeks up there. Just wanted to see if, the dust would clear.
Yeah.
And full disclosure, we're from Canada. So, we went up and stayed with the family, and we just hung out. Anyway, on our way back, we drove through Montana, Idaho, and came back to Seattle. And we stayed at this Airbnb in Montana on the way back. And I got to say, it was one of the most interesting, not just experiences, right? Because you can find cool amenities and design a great guest book anywhere. If you put a little bit of thought into it, a little bit of a Google search, just about anybody can do it, right? But it's more than that. It was this purposefully built, really well-designed space that took into account all of the things that you might need to do while you were staying there for a few days, more than just sleeping and showering and making food. And they had a little business center, and they had a little, an area where if you wanted to do some yoga or stretching, you could, and they activated the outdoor space around there. And it struck me at that time where I never thought before that stay that hotels could learn a lot from the vacation rental industry, because there's so much cool stuff going on out there. And then obviously this COVID thing's persisted, but I can't get that out of my mind that hotels, those that are going to survive are going to be the ones that can pivot, and not necessarily pivot towards vacation rental platforms or
Mhm.
the way of doing business, but getting inspired by the interesting, cool things that are going on in the vacation rental space, to come out of this in a different way.
100%. And that's why I like talking with you, because when we did have that conversation, you're a 20-year veteran in the hotel space. And so you've seen the evolution of that segment of hospitality, right? You've seen what works and what does not work, especially for specific brands and markets and stuff like that. And so seeing that and then taking that experience that you had in Idaho, my thing is, did you automatically did you see a hybrid solution in your head of
Absolutely.
hotel? Yeah.
For sure. We started seeing, before this all kicked off, Airbnb started letting hotels into their network.
Mhm.
And that was
My
just,
hotel, my hotel in Oregon was one of the first ones to get on the platform.
yeah. So, I mean, I think, if you're looking at it just from a business and a distribution perspective, right? You
Mhm.
want to have your hotel on as many sites as you can have it on, because you want it in front of as many eyes as you can get it so that people book it. And that's part of the challenge in running a hotel, especially with revenue management, is just managing all the
gosh.
channels out there, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's a nightmare. But more than that, though, I think the pivot that Airbnb was making into the hotel space, that's probably slowed down. I'm sure that's going to ramp up again, down the road.
Yeah.
I think they're the ones that are going to drag the industry kicking and screaming in that direction. And the hotels that are going to be successful are the ones that recognize this is an opportunity for us to pivot and do things a little bit differently.
Yeah. I will tell you though, I'm a little scared, and this is some like not insider stuff, but this is just some like vacation rental
This is some like
talk.
behind the curtain talk.
Yeah, behind the curtain talk is that Airbnb, has made a lot of mistakes with COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of that's kind of a given for a lot of companies. I'm pretty sure we all made a mistake right when COVID happened, whether it was totally backing off or going totally full rampant and saying F it, we don't care what the the side effects are. But they're switching to a full commission model to the host, which right now it's a split fee, which the guest pays a certain percent and then 3% gets taken from the host. Now they're switching full 15% to the host, becoming just like any OTA, Booking, Expedia, you name it. Plus what they did with allowing full 100% refunds with no, obviously in the beginning it's kind of expected, but no option to help guests want to get a credit for another future stay, or helping the hosts that are depending on this, paying their mortgages with these revenues. No regard to them, and really kind of burned the host side of things. There's a bunch of stakeholders in this industry. You have hosts, owners, property managers, guests, Airbnb, etc. And I'm fearful that they may have burnt too many bridges with that. And so getting into the hotel world, and we've seen this, and I think you have a lot of insight on this too, but the hotels aren't even opening. I have a guest that's coming on the show, and they're not expected to open until 2021, after February. 2021, and their bill a month, and just running their normal property the way it is with no staff, no nothing, no guests, is $1 million.
Yeah, carrying costs.
Yeah, but they're 1,200 rooms. So my thing is, okay, hotels are already paying a ton in OTA commissions. Not that it's bad. Like you said, we need to be on every platform to get as many eyes as possible. But it's our job as hoteliers, as vacation rental property managers, as destinationaires, is to get them to want to come back direct.
Yeah,
that's our job. They were on the site for maybe 20 minutes, or maybe they spent a week planning their vacation, but they're with you for a week or more or whatever. It's our job to make the experience so good that we avoid having those commissions continue, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I think it's interesting that that is a recognized need in both industries, but nobody's really cracked the code yet. And my evidence for that is the growth and proliferation of OTAs.
Yeah. 100%.
If anybody cracked the code, they wouldn't have a business model.
100%.
So it's one of those things. I think you're right. We keep evolving. We keep trying new things. It's our job to try to stay ahead of the curve when it comes to that. I mean, some of these hotels pay insane amounts of money to not only commissions, which can be like, in the teens to in the 20%.
Yeah.
Huge amount of money. Right. So, for those that don't totally get the way it works, like if you sold a room for $100 on Expedia and you had a 20% commission, you're not netting $100. You're getting $80. Right? Like that's
before costs.
Before costs. So that's really, it can really affect profit, but they're also, in their bid to try to generate more direct bookings, they spend a ton of money online marketing for their hotel or their destination against the OTAs. So they're paying commission and they're paying to market against the OTAs.
Yeah.
Right. You got to figure out like, where is my money most useful?
Exactly. And I don't know if you heard the episode with Sean in Australia with Open Pantry podcast. You guys in that episode?
Yeah, I just
together?
had him on. Yeah.
So you know who he is, and he and I did a similar thing like you guys did. We did a crossover podcast like this one, and at the end of the day, I think we came to the conclusion I think we overcomplicated the whole industry.
Without a doubt.
I think we overcomplicated something. You have a PMS, then you have a channel manager, and you have a CRM, and all these other things. You're like, there's a little chunk of revenue going out to all these platforms, whether they're OTA or direct. So at the end of the day, it's just fighting profitability and sustainability.
I've always been amazed. And, I mean, I guess this is a vote for capitalism. I don't know how we don't need to go down that road, but it's always amazed me that there's someone who comes up with a business model that finds a way to siphon off a tiny percentage, right? Between what's going on between you and your guest coming in.
100%.
And, 5-10 years ago, it was a couple of different companies you had to pay. And then suddenly, messaging platforms come in and, different, whatever. There's all kinds of them. So yeah, I mean, kudos to the people that are clever enough to come up with that stuff.
Yeah.
Apparently there's a lot of air in the system still.
Seriously. And that's what I'm curious to see. I just had a guest on my show. They're based out in Poland called Bidroom, and they're growing pretty well. And I know a lot of people that are connected with them from the vacation rental and hotel space. And I'm curious to see, they've been operating for, I want to say a little over 5 years. So they've hit a comfortable mark. They're not like a startup anymore. But they are on a subscription base for the guest. So no commission to the hotel, but they offer more value. That's where I'm starting to see the success in, is that the guest feels like they're getting more, but they're only paying $29 a month or whatever the monthly or yearly fee is. So they're not only that, but they're also saving, they're getting discounts, they're getting extra perks and packages and stuff like that. It's like I would say if you're an independent boutique hotel, this is like your customizable rewards program in a sense.
And they've been around 5 years, you said. So they've been around
I think it's 7, but I think they really peaked in 5.
So they've been around longer than all of this has been going on. But it's an interesting thing to note that when 2008, 2009 happened, there were a lot of things came out of that time, right? Obviously social media kind of exploded after that, but you got the Uber, Lyft, Airbnb, all the meal delivery apps, like all that sort of sprung out of that time. We're going to have that level of seismic shift after this is all said and done, because I know there are a ton of people behind the scenes just trying to figure out, like, how can we morph our industries to replace the business that's not there anymore.
Exactly. We find the gap in the market, and this is another, not to pivot back to the destination air thing, But there's this guy wasn't involved in the Destination Air award at all, but they have a vacation rental management company in Georgia, and they looked at their biggest gap in occupancy and revenue. Said, okay, when is this time? Which a lot of hoteliers do, a lot of vacation rental management companies do. They found their gap. It's like the last or second week of September, and they said, okay, we have a 7% occupancy across all our hundreds of properties or whatever. We need to find a way to fill it. And instead of finding other companies to do it, they created their own barbecue and blues festival type deal. So the whole downtown, all the shops opened up, started barbecuing, playing music and dancing and all these things, right? These cool festivities. And started just advertising, and that's where the community aspect came in. They provided value. They created something cool that they found the gap, they filled it, and now it's one of their most booked weekends they ever have outside of and even on top of their busy season of like summer and other things. So I think what you're saying is why I bring that up is just because with the COVID, I think right now a lot of people are finding, okay, where's this gap? I see a gap here. I see a gap there. Is there any connections? Nope, no connections. Next. And they're just trying to find ways to fill it. And just like you said, it's going to be a big part of that cosmic shift.
I think it will. Actually, that's interesting. There's something I wanted to get your take on the show regarding rates and revenue management in the vacation rental space. What's been going on in the hotel space is, that's, if you look at the STAR data through the last quarter, it's been, it was slowly jumping up kind of as we left Memorial Day at the end of May and got through to the end of August. It sort of slowly bounced up, and it got to above 50% nationally, occupancy wise, 2 times in August. I think it was the second and third week of August, or it might've been the first and second. In any event, now it's started to decline again. But if you dig into the numbers, the top 25 markets in the country, so the big urban cores, they didn't even touch 50%. They were still in the 30s through the summer here. And now that summer's over and that leisure travel is declining, it's not getting replaced by business travel and group travel that usually goes into these urban centers, right? So we're going to, I think, and I don't want to get negative on this, I've talked about it enough, but too much. But I think the reality is that, I think we're in for whatever positivity and delirium was occurring in the industry as these numbers started to go up. That's going to start to fade off now that we're after Labor Day. So we'll see how people deal with that. Anyway, a long-winded way of getting to the point that I'm curious to know how vacation rental owners and management companies are coping with that shift in business and how you're tackling rate and revenue management.
That's a good question. And we've seen a lot, kind of like the, STAR report, that the bigger cities, New York, Seattle, LA, whatever, a lot of the majority cities aren't seeing as much traffic. And what we have seen with a lot of extensive data come out from like companies like AirDNA and all these like platforms that a lot of hosts use for their direct bookings and stuff, is that the drive markets, the drivable, staycations, 40-mile radius or more type deals are being successful because people are just tired. Like, a lot of people are working from home. Yes, we've lost a lot of jobs in the United States, but I think majority of people or companies have been able to find ways to cut costs, AKA offices, and keep employees. And so people are just wanting new scenery, and they're working from home, but wanting to have maybe a nice spot where they can go out to nature or take the kids out on a walk in the evening or stuff like that.
Right.
And it's not as scary to, you can go with you and your wife can go, to Idaho and walk a park without having to wear a mask because there's nobody else there. Right. Versus these big cities, there's people all over the place, and you know how it is. So we're seeing a lot of that. But my biggest thing with rates is, you can't create demand by dropping your rate. You can drop your rate to the lowest dollar possible, even if it meant you paying a guest to come into your property, and you still won't fill it.
Right.
But I think we've seen a huge growth with vacation rental markets. We've seen that as a proven method. A lot of people are just getting out. They're just tired of it. And so
Yeah.
a lot of companies are actually coming out on top. The hotels, unfortunately, from what I've heard, I had a buddy who manages and does this kind of, short-term rental arbitrage and gets all these listings and does really well for himself. They actually bought a hotel during this time. Yeah. And they renovated it and they created a hybrid, no front desk, no nothing. It's just housekeeping and maintenance team. And it's very personable, but not personal. It's kind of like that hybrid again. And they're doing successfully well. They've had over 1,000 reservations and they launched.
Wow.
They launched not too long ago.
Yeah,
good
for them.
A couple months, but they've already got over 1,000 on the book. So
good for them.
We're seeing a lot of markets do pretty good and increasing, like knowingly. This has been a huge topic, and I'm pretty sure you can touch on it too. High RevPAR and ADR does not equal profitability. If you are not operating at a cost that is substantial and providing still a good service, then there's still no point. I can have the highest RevPAR in my city against all my competition, but if I have a RevPAR of 190 and it costs me 160,
exactly,
and my opponent is costing them 70 and they're getting a 180, they're winning.
That's right.
So yeah. And so I think we're just seeing exactly, and I think we're seeing that really pick up right now.
I think the next interesting place that could be marketed to, especially in these drive destinations, these 45 100-mile away from where you live, wherever everybody in Seattle goes to vacation, that kind of thing. Where does everyone in LA go to vacation? Everyone in Atlanta, where do they go to vacation? Is the schoolcation, where all of the kids are doing stuff online, the parents are working online. That it makes perfect sense. Well, why don't you all just go to an Airbnb or I'm agnostic on the vacation rental platform. Airbnb is like Google, right? At this point, it's like it's a verb and a noun. But you go get a vacation rental somewhere and you all can do your work from this cool place. And when you're off, you're in this, great place. You can go, do barbecue and blues or whatever, wherever you're at. I think that's the kind of thing that we're going to see over the next 6, 9, probably 12, probably through the school year, honestly.
Yeah. Well, you and I talked again off record about, the hybrid model and companies like Lodge that I was telling you about. Like, I think we're going to see a new age of hoteliers from this too.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And not to be on vacation rentals, but they're going to start going toward keypad door entry and instead of mobile key and more community. I can't preach this enough. The community aspect. Yes, we can't do big group events and other stuff, but building something that gives people to do that they all love. It comes back to anticipated and shared experiences, right? If I book a Lodge hotel, I know I'm going to have the opportunity to go hammock and to go bike riding or to skiing or kayaking or, there's all these activities that other people around the world love doing. And they're doing very well at that. And so I think and they're young. That's the coolest part is like not enough people in the industry are getting into it because I don't think we've portrayed the cool stuff that is actually going on. Yeah,
that's true. The other big element right now in hospitality and travel is cleanliness, safety and cleanliness. And we've all seen how hotels are, they're advertising it and pushing it, and they all have their own version of the exact same program, trying to score marketing points and mind share in their customer base around safety and cleanliness, which in my opinion has a limited runway. You can only talk about that for so long before you got to get back to what you're all about. But how are vacation rentals coping with the need to be out there talking about cleanliness and the safety of the destination?
Yeah, that's another good question, and it makes me think of a couple people specifically in the space that are very much preaching trust and confidence, right? Transparency. We've had so many conversations. I'm pretty sure you heard of Josh Kopel, who's been on my show. We're talking about transparency in the industry. and with each other, being honest, like, this month is really hard.
Mhm.
Or, in April, we lost $124,000 from our main vacation rental. And I'll just say that out loud.
Yeah.
Like being transparent about this stuff, like it's not easy, but
Yeah.
what can we do with this transparency when it comes with each other and with the guests? And I think we're seeing a lot of cleaning certification stuff come out, which was one of the sponsors of the show. Jill Mason with VR Scheduler, she created a cleaning certification, teamed up with all these companies in the space, and create a housekeeping relief fund. Is doing all these things to portray trust and confidence. And instead of like hotels, creating ads and videos saying, this cleaning program and this is how we are going to deal with COVID, vacation rentals don't have common spaces unless you're like a multifamily home building, but a lot of those aren't doing very well right now for obvious reasons. But single family homes and urban areas outside of cities are doing better because there is no common spaces. But then at the end of the day, we've seen people that display that on their listing, like we're cleaning certified, following the CDC guidelines or blah, blah, blah. This is like, they just portray what they do and how they do it, and maybe update some pictures and stuff like that. Their bookings are actually doing better than those that do not portray that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I think just kind of being upfront and transparent about it is really what we're seeing.
You have to be. Are there any tools or services out there that vacation rental owners can go after to, I guess the subtext of the question really is more about in hotels. Yes. Okay. They're always clean.
Yeah.
We know they're not always clean, but like, it's implied that they're clean. Right.
Uh-huh.
And there are training protocols. They did. Yeah. And they're not hospital clean. Maybe some of them are getting close to that, ish now for a while. But there are training protocols and there's partnerships with chemical companies, and you have somebody maintaining all of your equipment, and they buy these $800 vacuums, and like it's expensive to run housekeeping in a hotel, which is all the more frustrating when it's not done well. But anyway, they spend a lot of money on this stuff. What's going on in vacation rentals? Is there a place that like owners can go to emulate that a little bit?
Actually, I'm glad that you brought that up, because I don't think so. And not that I've seen when it comes to, like chemical partnerships and making sure that, these are a lot of the operators and property managers really are those type that they order a lot of the stuff themselves. They're, very independent. It's very, it's very operator, if that makes sense. And so, finding there's not really any companies that come and say, like when you're front office manager or whatever, and they come into the lobby and say, hey, I'm so-and-so with so-and-so company, I want to give you an example. We don't have that. So I think we're just, what we've seen really is just the back end operations, like softwares and platforms, really developing a better system and creating these ways to get the cleaning process standardized and not automated, but very detail oriented, to then, cleaning certifications and other things like that, that are really just kind of taking off with that side of the industry.
Yeah. When this all kicked off, I learned something that in, almost 25 years in the industry, I never knew until 6 months ago. And it's that there's a list of chemicals on the EPA's website. And what I can do is link to it in the show notes, that shows you what every commercial grade chemical is air quote approved or able to, which viruses and bacteria they're able to kill. I had no idea that this database was out there, but when this all kicked off, there was a lot of discussion about, is the whatever thing that we're using to clean our bathrooms, is that going to kill the virus? And you got to think, early days, everybody was freaking out about it. We thought it lived on surfaces for days and you couldn't touch anything, and we all had wipes everywhere. And then nobody knew if the wipes did anything. And that database is just constantly getting updated. And that's a pretty valuable resource for people if they're looking to see what they're using is effective.
Agreed. Yeah. It's, I think it just comes into right now, there's a over population of tools and resources right now. Everyone's pushing content. Everyone is, you know, coming up with certain things, you know, cleaning programs and XYZ that it just is, it's really going to take finding the right thing that's going to fit you guys and just feeling safe and comfortable with it yourself. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And like knowing that it's not all surface based and it's air based. Okay. What can your housekeepers do when they're cleaning with each other? How can you keep your team safe? You know, because guests take on that risk of traveling with their family or whatever. And so, you know, as long as they're keeping themselves safe, but keeping your staff safe, and how can they, you know, dude, when I was on the test sites for COVID-19 for the guard, the biggest thing, so I've been trained in this for a while, but the biggest thing for people is taking off gloves appropriately.
Oh my
So
God,
whether it lives on surfaces or not,
Mm-hmm.
you're touching people with test swabs and noses and stuff, and who knows who coughs, spits, bleeds, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Taking off gloves appropriately, and especially with cleaning, you're dealing with chemicals, you're dealing with other bodily fluids that may be in the property. So that's just kind of my biggest rant is like, just learn how to take off your gloves appropriately and do that, and standardize it. Don't be afraid to say something to somebody like, hey, you're not taking your gloves off appropriately. You're increasing a risk of exposure, whether it's to COVID or something else.
Yeah. I'll find something. I'll throw it in the show notes too. I think that's super helpful. It's all these basic things that you take for granted. Like, I'm just
exactly.
No, you're throwing viruses everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are you thinking for the next 6 to 9 months?
I don't know. Part of me has been, I don't like being negative, but I have a feeling, you know, wave number 2 and is going to come, which is going to suck. But then I also feel very strongly that at the end of the day, we're going to see the same thing that we saw with April and March. You know, it went to a lull, but we picked back up.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping the same for hotels, man. That's like my biggest prayer. But I'm also thinking hotels, this is the time. Like, this is the pivot. This is the time to really rise to the tide. Like, get over those old mindset and ways of, well, this is how we do business and this is how the industry is, and getting that out of our heads and really focusing on, all right, this is time to shake up the industry, maybe uncomplicate it a little bit along the way. So that's my goal. Who knows, man? It's just, there's so many stakeholders and companies involved in the industry, you know, different segments of hospitality. So that's kind of where I'm at. So what about you? What do you think?
You know, I've been struggling not to get negative on it.
Yeah.
To be honest with you. And I don't want what I'm about to say to sound negative, but I just think it's the reality. I think it's important to look at what the current state is. And I think the next 6 to 9 months, vaccination or no vaccination, there's a lot that's still yet to shake out. You know, I do believe there's a pretty big financial crisis coming. I think you've got a lot of hotels that can't pay their bills, and at some point that's going to come home to, that rooster's going to come home to roost. There will be fallout from that. There's no doubt about it. There can't not be. I think the fact that all of these, there's a lot of businesses in downtown cores are saying, go work from home. You don't need to come back into the office. And that's going to be the case for the next year or more. We're already seeing, you know, if you come to downtown Seattle, you're already seeing for lease signs on storefronts on busy streets that had thousands of people going by every single day. You have restaurants that had essentially fail-safe business models serving everybody that works in this tower that has, you know, 4,000 or 5,000 people in it every single day, serving soups and sandwiches. National chains gone. And gone like a while ago when this was just kicking off, right? So that all still needs to work through the system. So, you know, I think as that stuff starts to happen, exactly what you're talking about now, the innovative ideas, that's the crucible where this stuff is gonna come out. You know, and then, you know, who knows what's going to happen next summer. I mean, hopefully we can start getting to a little bit of normalcy, but yeah, I think it's going to be a rough couple quarters. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, no, and I just, again, and on top of what you said, I want to see the industry unite and come together, and
Absolutely.
let's put brands aside, put loyalty programs aside, put boutique, not boutique, luxury, non-luxury, whatever. Put it
Yep.
aside and let's come together and figure this out. Like, let's stop hurting each other by
Mhm.
dropping our rates and saying, well, I'm going to get occupancy and I don't care how low I make my competition drop rates or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
we gotta, at the end of the day, this is our industry,
Mhm.
and I think we gotta fight for it.
This is probably just brings the show full circle, and I know you got to run, but
you're good.
you know, it's about it. This is about the destination, right? It's about
Mhm.
everybody banding together to support a place that not only, you know, has, you know, businesses and jobs, and, you know, hotels, vacation rentals, restaurants,
Yeah.
whatever,
Hospitality.
but it's about the collective and communal survival of an industry in all of the regions around the country, and it's going to take everybody coming together to make that happen, to come up with the ideas of different events that we could put on for our locals. It's, you know, it's time for hotels to embrace the 5 feet around them and not say, hey,
Yeah.
locals, no, you can't come in and use our gym because you're not maybe a bad example now because nobody's using gyms, but you get my point.
Yeah.
You're not a guest, so you can't come into this building. That it's the neighborhood around you that's going to keep your doors open. That's where
Mhm.
your revenue is going to come from, because nobody's flying here in
Yeah.
any appreciable numbers, and that number is going down, not up right now. So yeah, I think destination support is where it's at.
Yeah, exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's the perfect way to describe it. And just there's a reason why we live where we live.
Mhm.
There's a reason why you moved to Seattle. There's a reason why you're staying in Seattle. There's a reason why people live in their city. And the biggest thing that I've been saying is, like, your favorite places in town, your favorite coffee shop, your favorite special place to go take your wife, or, your favorite place to walk your dog. Those are going to be your guest favorites too, if you showcase it and showcase your neighborhood,
Exactly.
your community. And so, yeah, like you said, it's all about the destination and supporting each other and just kind of saying, all right, what can we do?
Love it. Start with
Yeah.
Destination Air, end with Destination Air.
Boom.
Look at that. And that wasn't
Yeah.
even planned. That just happened.
No, that was great. I love it.
Yeah. Hey,
Well-
if anybody wants to find you, where do they go? Since we're talking, so this is
yeah.
for the Proven Principles podcast. Will
Yeah.
Slickers, where can people find you?
Yeah, they can find me at www.slicktalkthepodcast.com. You can find me at Facebook at Slick Talk the Hospitality Podcast, Instagram at Slick Talk Pod, same as Twitter. And yeah, I'm also on LinkedIn. So Will Slickers, Will with 1 L. I'll send you all my links. But yeah, I'm everywhere, anywhere. I love this conversation. For all my Slick Talkers out there, where can they find you, Adam? Because you've been on the show four times.
Now 4 times. Yeah, 4-time
Yeah.
guest. Am I the first 4-timer?
You're the first
It's
four-timer.
going to be like an SNL club where,
Well, and-
the number of times you host.
Well, I was gonna say, not to even kind of go off topic again, but like, hey, we started with the Destination Air and with the Destination Air thing, and we're talking about community and people really embracing their neighborhood.
Mhm.
I'm seeing the same thing in the podcast world, especially with hospitality. This is the third crossover
Yeah.
I've been on
Yeah.
with or done.
Yeah.
Josh Copel, you, myself, Sean,
Mhm.
and I think we're gonna see a big increase in that too. So I'm
I
actually
think
kind of
so
excited.
too.
for
Yeah,
it.
it's about support for everybody in the network or in the,
Yeah, I
in the
think-
neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah, so all Proven Principle listeners and Slick Talkers out there, I think you're going to hear a lot more of stuff like this. So
I hope
get
so. I hope
Get
so.
ready.
Yeah. If anybody wants to find more about the show, just go to
Yeah.
theprovenprinciples.com. You can find everything about the show, past ones, show notes. Me and my company, you can find me at knowinghospitality.com. That's my official company, hotel management and consulting company. But yeah, we're online, we're everywhere. You type in one of those things in one of your services, you'll find me.
Awesome. Yeah, and I want to do a more dive in on Knowing Hospitality once we get a second opportunity to record. But
Anytime.
I think I'm excited to have you back on the show and to be on yours.
You too.
Thank
You
you.
too. Well, thanks so much for this. This is great.
Of course, my pleasure.
All right. Have a good one, man.
Thank you so much for listening. We love your support and want to provide the best we can to all our listeners. So please find us online, social media, and on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast.
What's up, everybody? If you've gotten this far into the episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast, then you are amazing, and thank you so much for tuning in. We want to send you two places really quickly. If you can, check out the show notes and click the hospitality.fm link. Check out all of our other shows on the podcast network. And don't forget, if you have someone that you want to hear on the podcast, then fill out the guest fill out form so that way we can get them on the show. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you enjoy another episode of Slick Talk, the Hospitality Podcast.